The iron bars smelled of rust and old fear, and the orc woman sitting behind them met Yannick Warfield's eyes with a directness that stopped him mid-step through the holding post's dim corridor. "You," she said, her voice low and matter-of-fact. "Are you married?" Yannick blinked, one hand still holding the writ he had come to file for grain transport permits. The guard beside him, a weathered man named Cullen, snorted and started to speak, but the orc woman cut him off. "I am asking him, not you." She stood, and Yannick saw she was not particularly tall for an orc, perhaps 5.5 feet, with green skin that caught the lamplight in soft tones and small tusks that pressed gently against her lower lip. Her dark hair was braided back from her face, and her eyes were amber, intent and calculating. "No," Yannick said slowly, "I am not married. Why do you ask?" "Because I need a husband, and you look like a man who might say yes if I gave you a good enough reason." She gripped the bars, her knuckles pale green against the black iron. "My name is Fenna Wormwood, and in 3 days I will be handed over to my former clan to be executed for abandoning an alliance marriage, unless I can prove I am already married to someone else. The treaty between humans and the northern orc clans forbids the seizure of any orc who has legally wed a human under imperial law. It is an old clause, meant to protect half-blood children and their mothers, but it will work for me if I can find someone willing." Yannick's mind caught on the strange, blunt practicality of it. Around him, the holding post bustled with its usual morning noise. Merchants arguing over tariffs, a blacksmith's hammer ringing from the adjacent forge, chickens squawking in the courtyard. He had come here to conduct ordinary business, and now a woman was proposing marriage to save her life. "Why did you leave the alliance marriage?" he asked. Fenna's expression did not change, but something flickered in her eyes. "Because the man I was to marry killed his first wife in a drunken rage, and my clan gave me to him anyway to seal a trade agreement. I ran rather than wait for him to do the same to me." Cullen shifted uncomfortably. "The extradition writ is signed, miss." "There is nothing, there is something if he marries me." Fenna kept her gaze on Yannick. "The law is clear. I checked with the magistrate's clerk yesterday. If I wed a human before the extradition is carried out, the writ becomes void. I stay here, under imperial jurisdiction, as the spouse of a citizen." Yannick set down his own writ on a nearby bench. His farm was 3 hours north of this post, a prosperous holding with good soil and a stone house his grandfather had built. He had no wife, no children, and neighbors who thought him too soft-hearted for his own good, because he always stopped to help a lamed horse or mend a stranger's wagon wheel. His mother had despaired of his ever choosing a bride, saying he was waiting for someone who did not exist. He looked at Fenna, who stood very still, her chin high despite the desperation that must be clawing at her. "If I marry you," Yannick said carefully, "your former clan will not simply accept it, they will come for you." "Yes," Fenna said, "they will. And if you are not prepared to stand against that, then I am wasting both our time. But if you are the kind of man who keeps his word once given and who does not flinch when trouble arrives, then I am offering you a bargain. I can work. I can fight. I will earn my place in your household, and I will not be a burden to you." Yannick thought of his empty house, of the fields he tended alone since his father's death 2 years past, of the long evenings with only the dog for company. He thought of the look in Fenna's eyes, which was not pleading but proud, offering a trade between equals. He thought of the man who had killed his first wife, and of Fenna being sent back to him. "The magistrate is in the post today," Yannick asked Cullen. Cullen's eyebrows rose. "I, upstairs in the tax office. But you cannot be serious. Get him," Yannick said. "And bring the marriage registrar." Fenna's hands tightened on the bars, her breath catching. "You will do it." Yannick met her eyes and found himself smiling, a warm, steady thing that came easily to him. "I will do it, but you should know I am a farmer, not a warrior. I have a good right hook and I can shoot straight, but I have never fought in a war." "I have," Fenna said quietly. "So between us we will manage." Yannick stepped closer to the bars and extended his hand through them. "Then yes. I will marry you, Fenna Wormwood, and I will face whatever comes after." Her hand closed around his, strong and calloused, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Then Cullen sighed heavily and went to fetch the magistrate, muttering about fools and their short lives. The marriage was performed in the holding post's small chapel, a room that smelled of tallow candles and old wood. The magistrate, a sharp-eyed woman named Petra, asked twice if Yannick understood what he was doing, and both times he said yes. Fenna was released from her cell just long enough to stand beside him, still wearing the rough trousers and tunic she had been arrested in, and when the registrar asked if she took Yannick as her lawful husband, she said, "I do," in a voice that did not waver. Yannick said the same and meant it, though he barely knew her. The paperwork took longer than the vows. Petra inscribed their names in the imperial register, sealed it with wax, and handed Yannick a certificate of marriage that felt absurdly flimsy for the weight it carried. Then she looked at Fenna with something that might have been sympathy. "The extradition writ is void as of this moment," Petra said. "You are free to go, but the Wormwood clan will contest this and they have resources. Be ready." "We will be," Yannick said and offered Fenna his arm. They walked out of the holding post together into the bright, cold morning. Fenna paused on the steps, blinking in the sunlight as though she had not seen it in a long time, and Yannick realized she probably had not. The cells were windowless. "My farm is 3 hours north," Yannick said. "I have a wagon, and the roads are decent this time of year. We can be there by midday." Fenna nodded, still looking around as though committing the world to memory. "I have nothing to bring. Everything I owned was confiscated when I was arrested. Then we will get you new things." Yannick led her toward the stables where he had left his horse and wagon. "Do you ride?" "Yes, but I have not done so in months." Fenna climbed onto the wagon seat beside him with easy grace, and Yannick clicked his tongue to the horse, a sturdy bay mare named Clover. They rolled out of the holding post's gates and onto the northern road, and for a while neither of them spoke. The land around them was open and rolling, dotted with farmsteads and crossed by low stone walls. Spring was just beginning to touch the fields, the first green shoots pushing up through the dark earth. "What will you tell your neighbors?" Fenna asked eventually. Yannick considered. "The truth, I think. That I married you to keep you from being killed, and that anyone who has a problem with it can take it up with me." Fenna glanced at him, her amber eyes thoughtful. "You are either very brave or very foolish. My mother always said I was both." Yannick grinned. "But I have good neighbors, mostly. They will grumble, but they will not cause trouble. It is your clan I am worried about." "They will send someone to challenge the marriage first," Fenna said. "An envoy, probably, to argue that it was coerced or invalid. If that fails, they will try to take me by force. They cannot afford to let me go unpunished. It would set a precedent, and other women might get ideas about running." Yannick's hands tightened on the reins. "How many will they send? Hard to say. It depends on how angry my father is." Fenna's voice was carefully neutral. "He was the one who arranged the alliance marriage. He will see my escape as a personal insult. Your father is the clan leader." "Yes, Garin Wormwood, chief of the northern Wormwoods and a man who does not forgive easily." Fenna looked down at her hands. "I am his only daughter. He expected me to be obedient." Yannick heard the pain beneath the words and did not press. Instead, he pointed ahead to where a cluster of buildings was just visible over the next rise. That is my land. The house is the stone one with the red door. The barn is new as of last year, and the fields are mostly wheat and barley with a kitchen garden near the house. Fenna leaned forward, her expression shifting to something almost hungry. It looks peaceful. It is, Yannick said, or it was until I went and married a fugitive orc. Fenna laughed, a short, sharp sound that seemed to surprise her as much as it did him. I suppose I should apologize for disrupting your peaceful life. Do not, Yannick said. I was getting bored anyway. The house was warm despite being empty when they arrived, the banked fire in the hearth still giving off heat. Yannick showed Fenna inside, suddenly aware of how small and plain it must seem to her. The main room held a table, a few chairs, a shelf of books, and the hearth. A door to the left led to his bedroom, and a ladder climbed to the loft where he stored grain and dried herbs. It is not much, Yannick said, but it is sturdy, and the roof does not leak. Fenna turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. It is more than I have had in a long time. Where should I sleep? Yannick had been thinking about that on the drive over. The loft has space, and I can bring up a mattress and blankets, unless you would rather have the bedroom, in which case I can sleep out here by the fire. Fenna shook her head. The loft is fine. I do not want to displace you in your own house. You are not displacing me. You are my wife. Yannick said it lightly, but the word felt strange in his mouth, too big and real. Fenna met his eyes, and for a moment something passed between them, an acknowledgment of the oddity and the weight of what they had done. Then she smiled, a small, crooked thing that softened her face. A wife you have known for all of 2 hours. This must be some kind of record. Probably, Yannick agreed. Are you hungry? I have bread and cheese, and I can make stew if you want something hot. Stew sounds good. Fenna hesitated, then added, Thank you. For all of this, I know you are taking a great risk. Yannick shrugged, already moving toward the kitchen corner where he kept his supplies. You needed help, and I could give it. That is all. That is not all, Fenna said quietly. Most men would have walked past my cell without a second thought. Yannick paused, a loaf of bread in one hand. Then most men are cowards. Now sit down and let me feed you before you fall over. You look like you have not eaten a decent meal in weeks. Fenna sat, and Yannick set about making stew, chopping vegetables and salted pork with the ease of long practice. As he worked, he felt her watching him, and he wondered what she saw. A farmer, certainly, with broad shoulders and calloused hands, his brown hair a little too long and his face more kind than handsome. A man who had said yes when sense dictated no. A man who might just get himself killed for a stranger's sake. But when he set the bowl in front of her and saw the way her eyes closed in gratitude at the first bite, Yannick thought maybe it was worth it. They ate in companionable silence, and afterward, Yannick showed Fenna the rest of the farm. The barn held 2 cows, a handful of chickens, and Clover, who nickered happily when Fenna scratched her nose. The field stretched out in neat rows, ready for the spring planting, and the garden plot was freshly turned. I will need to plant soon, Yannick said. If you are willing to help, I would be grateful. 2 people can do it in half the time. I can help, Fenna said. I grew up on a farmstead before my clan moved to the hills. I know how to work the land. They walked back to the house as the sun began to dip toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Yannick built up the fire and fetched blankets and a mattress for the loft, and Fenna climbed up to arrange her new sleeping space. When she came back down, she was smiling. I can see the stars through the loft window, she said. I had forgotten what they looked like. Yannick felt something tighten in his chest. You will see them every night now, I promise. Fenna looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. I believe you. That night, Yannick lay in his bed and listened to the soft sounds of Fenna settling in above him, and he wondered what he had gotten himself into. But when he finally slept, it was deeply and without regret. The first visitor arrived 4 days later, just as Fenna had predicted. Yannick was in the field, showing Fenna how to work the seed drill, when he saw a figure on horseback approaching from the south. The rider was tall and broad-shouldered, and as they drew closer, Yannick saw the green skin and the clan markings on their leather armor. "That is one of my father's lieutenants," Fenna said quietly, her hand tightening on the drill's handle. "His name is Crothar, and he is not known for his patience." Yannick straightened, brushing dirt from his hands. "Then we will meet him together. Stay close to me." They walked to the edge of the field as Crothar dismounted, and Yannick saw the orc's eyes narrow when he spotted Fenna. "Fenna Wormwood," Crothar said, his voice a low rumble. "Your father sent me to bring you home." "I am home," Fenna said evenly. "I am married now under imperial law." "The extradition is void." Crothar's gaze shifted to Yannick, and there was nothing friendly in it. "This human is your husband." "He is," Fenna said. Crothar snorted. "A marriage of convenience is not a marriage. You think you can hide behind a piece of paper and some human laws." "Your father will not accept this." "He does not have to accept it," Yannick said, keeping his voice calm. "He only has to honor it. The treaty is clear." "The treaty was not meant for this," Crothar snapped. "It was meant to protect half-blood children, not to give runaways a way to escape their obligations." "My obligation was to a man who murdered his first wife," Fenna said, her voice hard. "I chose to live instead. If my father has a problem with that, he can take it up with the imperial magistrate." Crothar took a step forward, and Yannick moved to put himself between the orc and Fenna. It was not a dramatic gesture, just a simple shift of weight, but Crothar stopped. "You are making a mistake, human," Crothar said. "The Wormwood clan does not forget insults, and you have just made yourself an enemy." "Then I am an enemy," Yannick said. "But Fenna stays here with me, and that is the end of it." Crothar stared at him for a long moment, then spat on the ground and turned back to his horse. "Your father will hear of this," he said to Fenna, "and he will not be pleased." "He rarely is," Fenna said. Crothar rode off without another word, and Yannick let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. "That went about as well as I expected," Fenna said. She was pale, her hands trembling slightly. "He will go back and report, and then my father will decide what to do next." Yannick took her hand, feeling the shake in her fingers. "You are safe here, Fenna. I meant what I said. I will not let them take you." Fenna looked down at their joined hands, and when she spoke, her voice was softer than he had ever heard it. "Why are you doing this? You could have said no in that cell. You could have walked away and let me face my fate. Why did you not?" Yannick thought about it, trying to find the right words. "Because you asked," he said finally, "and because I could help, and because I think you deserve a chance to live without fear." He paused, then added, "And because I liked the way you looked at me, like I was someone worth trusting." Fenna's eyes widened, and for a moment Yannick thought he had said too much. But then she squeezed his hand just once and said, "You are." They went back to planting, working side by side until the sun set and their backs ached. Over dinner, Fenna told him stories about her childhood, about learning to ride before she could walk and helping her mother tend the goats. Yannick told her about his grandfather, who had come to this land with nothing but a wagon and a dream, and about his mother, who had taught him to read and to cook and to see the good in people. "She would have liked you," Yannick said. "She always said I needed someone who would not let me be too soft." "I am not sure I am that person," Fenna said, a smile tugging at her lips. "I ran away rather than fight, remember? You ran to survive," Yannick corrected. "That is not the same as running away from a fight." "And you are here now facing what comes," That takes courage. Fenna looked at him, her amber eyes bright in the firelight. You have a kind way of seeing things, Yannick Warfield. I just see them as they are, Yannick said, and he found he meant it. The days settled into a rhythm after that. They planted the fields together, working from dawn until dusk, and Fenna proved to be as capable as she had promised. She was strong and tireless, and she had a way of moving through the work that was almost meditative, as though she found peace in the simple, repetitive tasks. In the evenings, they sat by the fire and talked, trading stories and laughter, and Yannick found himself looking forward to those hours more than anything else. He was falling for her. He realized one night as he watched her mending a tear in his shirt with quick, neat stitches. It was not a sudden thing, not a lightning strike, but a slow, steady growing that filled the empty spaces in his heart. He liked the way she hummed while she worked, and the way she laughed at his terrible jokes, and the way she looked at him sometimes, as though he was a puzzle she was trying to figure out. He did not say anything, though. It was too soon, and the marriage was still more contract than love. But he thought maybe, given time, it could be both. The second visitor came 2 weeks later, and this time there were 3 of them. Yannick was repairing the barn door when he saw them riding up the road, and he called out to Fenna, who was in the garden. She came running, her face going tight when she saw the riders. "That is my father," she said. "The one in the middle." Garin Wormwood was a massive orc, easily 6.5 feet tall, with shoulders like a bull and a face carved from stone. He rode a huge black horse that looked barely large enough to carry him, and the 2 orcs flanking him were nearly as imposing. They stopped at the edge of the farmyard, and Garin dismounted with the slow, deliberate movements of a man who knew he was intimidating. "Fenna," he said, his voice deep and cold, "you have caused me a great deal of trouble." "I am sorry for that," Fenna said, stepping forward. Yannick moved to stand beside her, and she glanced at him, a silent thank you in her eyes. "But I will not apologize for choosing to live. You were to marry Vrager and seal the alliance between our clan and his," Garin said. "Instead, you ran like a coward and married this human. Do you have any idea what that has cost me?" "I know exactly what it cost you," Fenna said. "A trade agreement and some pride. What Vrager cost his first wife was her life. I decided mine was worth more than your politics." Garin's expression did not change, but his hand moved to the axe at his belt. Yannick tensed, ready to move, but Fenna held up a hand. "You cannot take me," she said. "I am married under imperial law, and the treaty protects me. If you try to seize me by force, you will bring the imperial army down on your clan." "Is that what you want?" "What I want," Garin said slowly, "is for my daughter to honor her obligations." "But it seems you have forgotten what it means to be a wormwood." "I have not forgotten," Fenna said. "I just decided I wanted to be something else." Garin stared at her for a long moment, and Yannick could see the struggle in his eyes. Then he turned to Yannick, his gaze hard and assessing. "You are the human who married her," Garin said. "I am," Yannick said. "Do you love her?" Yannick did not hesitate. "I am learning to, and I will protect her with my life if I have to." Garin's eyes narrowed. "Pretty words, but words are cheap. Actions are what matter." "Then judge me by my actions," Yannick said. "I married her when she needed help. I have given her a home and a place to belong, and I will stand between her and anyone who tries to take her, including you." One of the orcs flanking Garin laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "You think you can stand against us, human? You would not last 5 seconds. "Maybe not," Yannick said, "but I would make those 5 seconds count." Garin held up a hand, silencing the other orc. He studied Yannick for a long moment, and then, surprisingly, he smiled. It was not a kind smile, but it was not entirely cruel either. "You have courage, I will give you that," Garin said, But courage will not be enough if I decide to take my daughter back by force. The treaty can be challenged. There are loopholes, arguments that could be made. And I have the resources to make them. Then make them, Yannick said. But until you do, Fenna stays here. Garen's smile faded. You are playing a dangerous game, human. I could crush you and take her right now, and no one would stop me. The Imperial garrison at the holding post would stop you, Yannick said. And you know it. That is why you are here talking instead of fighting. You need a legal reason to take her, and you do not have one. Garen's jaw tightened, and for a moment Yannick thought the orc would attack anyway. But then Garen turned to Fenna, and his expression softened just slightly. You really choose this? He asked. This human, this farm, this life? Fenna met her father's gaze without flinching. I choose not to die for your politics. If that means this life, then yes, I choose it. Garen nodded slowly, and Yannick saw something like sadness in his eyes. Then you are no longer my daughter, he said. The Wormwood clan disowns you. You are nothing to us. Fenna flinched as though struck, but her voice stayed steady. If that is how it has to be. Garen remounted his horse, and the other two orcs did the same. Do not expect mercy if we meet again, Garen said. And do not expect your human to protect you forever. Sooner or later he will fail, and when he does, you will regret this choice. He rode off without waiting for a response, and Fenna stood very still, watching him go. When the riders were out of sight, she let out a shaky breath and sat down hard on the ground. That could have gone worse, she said, her voice tight. Yannick sat down beside her. Are you all right? I will be. Fenna pressed her hands to her face. I knew he would disown me. I expected it, but hearing him say it still hurts. Yannick put an arm around her shoulders, and after a moment she leaned into him. They sat like that for a long time, the sun warm on their backs, and Yannick thought about families and the choices people made to survive. You have a family here, he said quietly, if you want it. Fenna looked up at him, her eyes wet but fierce. I want it. Yannick smiled and pulled her closer, and she rested her head against his shoulder. It was not a declaration of love, not yet, but it was a promise, and that was enough. The weeks passed, and the farm flourished. The crops sprouted green and strong. The chickens laid eggs in abundance, and Fenna settled into the rhythm of life with an ease that surprised them both. She was up before dawn every morning, tending the animals and making breakfast, and she worked beside Yannick in the fields with a quiet determination that he admired. But more than that, she made the house feel like a home. She brought wildflowers in from the meadow and set them on the table, and she sang while she cooked, old orc songs that Yannick did not understand but found beautiful anyway. She teased him when he was too serious, and she listened when he needed to talk, and slowly, carefully, they built something real between them. Yannick fell harder every day. He loved the way Fenna laughed, her whole face lighting up with joy. He loved the way she frowned when she was concentrating, her small tusks pressing into her lower lip. He loved the way she looked at him sometimes, as though he was the best thing that had ever happened to her, even though he knew he was just a farmer with dirt under his nails and no grand dreams. He wanted to tell her, but he was not sure how. The marriage had been a practical arrangement, and he did not want to make her feel obligated to return feelings she might not have. So he kept it to himself and tried to show her in other ways, by making her favorite meals, by fixing the loft window so she had a better view of the stars, by leaving little gifts on her pillow, like a smooth river stone or a bundle of lavender. Fenna noticed, he knew, but she did not say anything. Instead, she started leaving her own gifts. A new shirt she had sewn for him, a loaf of bread shaped like a wheat sheaf, a drawing of clover that she had sketched on a scrap of paper. It was a quiet courtship, unspoken but unmistakable, and Yannick thought maybe she felt the same way. He was sure of it the night she came down from the loft and asked if she could sleep in his bed. Yannick had been reading by the fire, and he looked up in surprise. Fenna stood at the bottom of the ladder, her hair loose around her shoulders, wearing the nightgown he had bought for her at the market. "I am not trying to seduce you," she said quickly, her cheeks darkening. "I just do not want to sleep alone tonight. It is the anniversary of my mother's death, and I keep thinking about her, and I do not want to be by myself." Yannick set down his book and stood. "Of course," he said, "you do not have to explain." He led her to the bedroom and pulled back the blankets, and Fenna climbed in, looking small and vulnerable in the large bed. Yannick lay down beside her, careful to leave space between them, but Fenna scooted closer, pressing her back against his chest. "Is this all right?" she asked. "Yes," Yannick said, his voice rough. He put an arm around her waist and she laced her fingers through his. They lay like that in the darkness, and after a while, Fenna started to talk. She told him about her mother, who had been gentle and kind and who had taught her to see beauty in the world. She told him about the day her mother died, from a fever that the clan healer could not cure, and how Fenna had felt like a part of herself had died too. She told him about the loneliness that had followed, and the way her father had grown harder and colder, as though he could not bear to look at her because she reminded him too much of his lost wife. Yannick listened, his heart aching for her, and when she was done, he pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "I am sorry," he said. "She sounds like she was wonderful." "She was," Fenna said. "I wish you could have met her. She would have liked you." "I would have liked her too," Yannick said. Fenna turned in his arms so she was facing him, and in the dim light from the banked fire, Yannick could see her eyes, bright and searching. "Yannick," she said softly, "I need to tell you something." His heart stuttered. "What is it?" "I think I am falling in love with you," Fenna said. "I did not plan to. I thought this would just be a marriage on paper, a way to stay alive. But you have been so kind and so steady, and I find myself wanting more, wanting this to be real." Yannick felt something break open in his chest, warm and bright. "It is real," he said. "At least for me. I have been falling for you since the day you asked me to marry you. Maybe even before that, when you looked at me like I was someone worth trusting." Fenna's eyes widened, and then she smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing Yannick had ever seen. "Really?" "Really," Yannick said, and he kissed her. It was a soft kiss, tentative and sweet, and when they pulled apart, Fenna was laughing, her forehead pressed to his. "I was so worried you only saw me as a responsibility," she said. "Never," Yannick said. "You are the best thing that has ever happened to me, Fenna Warfield." She kissed him again, and this time it was deeper, full of promise, and Yannick thought he could live in this moment forever and be happy. They fell asleep tangled together, and when Yannick woke in the morning, Fenna was still there, her head on his shoulder and a smile on her face. For a while, everything was perfect. The crops grew, the summer sun warmed the fields, and Yannick and Fenna built a life together that was simple and good. They worked hard, laughed often, and loved each other with a quiet fierceness that needed no grand gestures, but the peace did not last. The raiders came in the middle of the night, 3 weeks after Garen's visit. Yannick woke to the sound of breaking glass and Fenna's shout, and he was on his feet before he was fully awake, grabbing the hunting knife he kept by the bed. "Stay behind me," he said to Fenna, but she was already moving, grabbing a heavy iron poker from beside the hearth. There were 4 of them, orcs in dark leather with weapons drawn. The leader was a scarred, cruel-looking male Yannick did not recognize, and he grinned when he saw Fenna. "There you are," the orc said. "We have been looking for you." "Get out of my house," Yannick said, stepping between Fenna and the raiders. The leader laughed. "Your house? This is not your house, human. This is a prison you built for our prize, but we are here to take her home." "She is home," Yannick said. "And you are trespassing. Leave now, or I will make you leave." One of the raiders lunged, and Yannick moved on instinct, slashing with the knife. He caught the orc across the arm, drawing blood, and the raider stumbled back with a curse. The leader snarled and raised his sword, but before he could swing, Fenna was there, the poker in her hands, and she brought it down on the orc's wrist with a crack that echoed through the room. The leader howled and dropped his sword, and Fenna kicked it away, her face fierce. "You made a mistake coming here," she said. The fight was brutal and chaotic. Yannick took a cut to his shoulder and another to his ribs, but he kept moving, kept fighting, driven by the need to protect Fenna. She fought beside him with a strength and skill that stunned him, and together they drove the raiders back out the door and into the yard. The leader was the last to retreat, clutching his broken wrist and glaring at them with pure hatred. "This is not over," he spat. "The clan will not stop. We will keep coming until you are dead, human, and she is back where she belongs." "Then you will keep losing," Yannick said, his voice steady despite the pain radiating from his wounds. The raiders fled into the night, and Yannick sagged against the doorframe, his vision swimming. Fenna caught him before he could fall, her hands gentle despite the blood on them. "You are hurt," she said, her voice shaking. "I will be fine," Yannick said, though he was not sure that was true. "Are you all right?" "I am fine," Fenna said, "but you are not. Come on, let me get you inside." She helped him to the bed and fetched water and bandages, and she cleaned his wounds with steady hands. The cut on his ribs was deep, and Yannick hissed as she stitched it closed, but he did not complain. When she was done, Fenna sat beside him, her head in her hands. "This is my fault," she said. "They came because of me. You could have been killed." "I was not," Yannick said. He reached out and took her hand. "And I would do it again. I meant what I said, Fenna. I will face your enemies, all of them if I have to." "You should not have to," Fenna said, her voice breaking. "You should not have to fight my battles." "They are our battles now," Yannick said. "We are married, remember? What is yours is mine, and what is mine is yours. That includes enemies." Fenna looked at him, tears streaming down her face, and then she kissed him, hard and desperate, and Yannick kissed her back, pouring everything he felt into it. When they pulled apart, Fenna was shaking. "I love you," she said. "I love you so much, and I am terrified of losing you." "You will not lose me," Yannick said. "I promise." But even as he said it, he knew the raiders would be back, and next time there might be more of them. He needed a plan, something to end this once and for all. The next morning, despite Fenna's protests, Yannick rode to the holding post. His wounds ached with every jolt of the wagon, but he gritted his teeth and kept going. He found Magistrate Petra in her office, and he told her everything. The raiders, the threats, the ongoing danger. Petra listened with a grim expression, and when he was done, she leaned back in her chair. "The Wormwood clan is testing the treaty," she said. "They want to see if the Empire will enforce it or if it is just words on paper." "What can we do?" Yannick asked. Petra tapped her fingers on the desk. "We can call a formal parley." Under Imperial law, disputes between human citizens and orc clans can be resolved through mediation. If we can get Garen Wormwood to the table, we can force him to honor the treaty or face sanctions. "Will he come?" Yannick asked. "He will if I make it clear that the alternative is military action," Petra said. "The Empire does not take kindly to clans that attack its citizens. I can send a writ demanding his presence within 2 weeks. If he refuses, we will send soldiers to enforce the treaty." Yannick felt a flicker of hope. "Do it, please." Petra nodded and began drafting the writ, her pen scratching across the paper. When she was done, she sealed it and handed it to a courier. "Go home," she said to Yannick. "Stay close to your farm and keep your wife safe. The parley will be held here at the holding post in 2 weeks. Be ready to testify." Yannick thanked her and rode home, where Fenna was waiting anxiously. "What did the magistrate say?" she asked as soon as he walked in. Yannick told her, and Fenna's eyes widened. "A parley." "You think my father will actually come?" "He will if he wants to avoid a war with the Empire," Yannick said. "And I think he is smart enough to see that fighting the Empire is a losing proposition." Fenna nodded slowly. "Then we wait." The 2 weeks passed slowly, each day heavy with tension. Yannick healed, though his ribs still ached when he moved too quickly, and he and Fenna fortified the house as best they could, barring the windows and keeping weapons close at hand. The raiders did not return, but the threat of them hung over everything like a storm cloud. At night, Fenna slept in Yannick's bed, and they held each other close, drawing comfort from the warmth and solidity of each other's presence. They did not talk about what might happen if the parley failed, but the question was always there, unspoken but understood. On the morning of the parley, they rode to the holding post together. The courtyard was crowded with people. Imperial soldiers in their blue and silver uniforms, merchants who had come to watch the proceedings, and a handful of orcs from various clans who had their own grievances to air. Garin Wormwood was already there, standing near the magistrate's building with his 2 lieutenants, and he watched Yannick and Fenna with cold, unreadable eyes. Magistrate Petra called the parley to order in the large hall that served as the post's court, and Yannick and Fenna took their seats at one side of the long table while Garin sat at the other. Petra sat at the head of the table, flanked by 2 imperial officers, and she wasted no time in getting to the point. "This parley has been called to resolve the dispute between Garin Wormwood, chief of the Northern Wormwood clan, and Yannick Warfield, a human citizen of the Empire, regarding the marriage of Fenna Wormwood to Yannick Warfield," Petra said. "The treaty between the Empire and the Orc clans states clearly that any Orc who marries a human citizen under Imperial law is granted the full protection of that citizenship and cannot be seized or harmed by their former clan. Garin Wormwood, do you dispute this?" Garin leaned forward, his massive hands folded on the table. "I do not dispute the treaty itself. I dispute the validity of this particular marriage. It was clearly a marriage of convenience, arranged to circumvent a legitimate extradition order. My daughter was to be returned to her betrothed to answer for her breach of contract. Instead, she found a loophole and hid behind it. The marriage is legal under Imperial law," Petra said. "That is all that matters." "Is it?" Garin said. "Because it seems to me that the law was not intended to be abused in this way. My daughter was not fleeing persecution or seeking to build a life with this human. She was running from her responsibilities, and he helped her do it." Petra looked at Yannick. "Do you have anything to say to that?" Yannick stood, his heart pounding. "I married Fenna because she asked me to and because she needed help, but it stopped being a marriage of convenience weeks ago. I love her and she loves me, and we have built a life together. If that is not what the treaty was meant to protect, then I do not know what is." Garin's expression did not change. "Love is easy to claim and hard to prove." "Then let me prove it," Yannick said. He turned to Fenna, who was staring at him with wide eyes. "Fenna Warfield, when I married you, I did it because it was the right thing to do. But if I could go back and do it again, I would marry you because I cannot imagine my life without you. You are brave and strong and kind, and you make me want to be a better man. I love you, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure you know it." Fenna stood, her eyes wet. "Yannick, I love you too. You saved me when I had nothing, and you gave me a home and a family and a reason to believe in the future. I choose you, not because I have to, but because I want to. Every day I want to." Garin watched them, and for the first time, Yannick saw something shift in his expression. It was not quite approval, but it was no longer pure hostility. "You really believe this is more than just survival?" Garin asked. "Yes," Yannick said. I do. Garen looked at Fenna. And you would choose this human over your clan, over your family. My clan disowned me, Fenna said quietly. You disowned me. Yannick is my family now. Garen was silent for a long moment, and then he sighed, a deep, weary sound. You were always stubborn, he said, just like your mother. Fenna's breath caught. What? Your mother would have done the same thing, Garen said. She would have run rather than marry a man who would hurt her. I should have seen that. I should have protected you. But I was too focused on politics, on alliances, and I failed you. I am sorry. Fenna stared at him, tears streaming down her face. You are sorry. I am, Garen said. He stood and he looked old suddenly, bowed down by regret. I cannot undo what I have done. I cannot give you back the family you lost, but I can stop making it worse. I will honor the treaty. You are free to live your life with this human, and the Wormwood clan will not trouble you again. Petra nodded. Then it is settled. The marriage is recognized as valid, and Fenna Warfield is under the full protection of imperial law. Any attempt to harm her or her husband will be met with the full force of the Empire. This parley is concluded. Garen turned to leave, but Fenna called out to him. Father, wait. He stopped, looking back at her. Thank you, Fenna said, for letting me go. Garen nodded, and there was something like sadness in his eyes. Be happy, Fenna, that is all I want for you now. He left, and Yannick put his arm around Fenna as she cried, her body shaking with the weight of it all. But they were tears of relief, Yannick thought, and maybe even of healing. They rode home that afternoon, the sun warm on their faces, and Fenna leaned against Yannick, her hand in his. It is really over, she said. I can hardly believe it. It is over, Yannick said. We are free. They reached the farm as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, and Yannick helped Fenna down from the wagon. She looked around at the fields, at the house, at the life they had built together, and she smiled. This is home, she said. Yes, Yannick said. It is. That night they sat by the fire, and Fenna looked at Yannick with a thoughtful expression. What is it? Yannick asked. I was thinking, Fenna said, about the vows we made at the holding post. They were real, but they were not ours. They were just words the magistrate told us to say. And, Yannick prompted. And I want to make new vows, Fenna said. Ones that are ours, that say what we actually feel. Would you do that with me? Yannick felt his throat tighten. I would love that. They stood facing each other in the firelight, and Yannick took Fenna's hands. I vow to stand by you, he said. In good times and bad, in plenty and in want. I vow to love you, to protect you, and to build a life with you that is full of joy and laughter. I vow to be your partner, your friend, and your family for as long as we both live. Fenna smiled, tears streaming down her face. I vow to stand by you, Yannick Warfield. I vow to love you with all my heart, to work beside you, and to face whatever comes with courage and hope. I vow to be your wife, not because I have to, but because I choose you every day for the rest of my life. Yannick kissed her, and it felt like sealing a promise, like making something sacred and permanent. When they pulled apart, Fenna was laughing, her eyes bright with happiness. We are really married now, she said. We really are, Yannick agreed. Winter came and went, and spring returned to the farm, bringing with it new growth and new possibilities. Yannick and Fenna worked the fields together, planting the crops that would see them through the next year. And they talked about the future, about the children they might have and the life they would build. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Fenna turned to Yannick with a shy smile. I have something to tell you, she said. Yannick looked at her, his heart suddenly racing. What is it? I am pregnant, Fenna said. We are going to have a baby. Yannick stared at her, and then he laughed, a joyful, incredulous sound, and he pulled her into his arms. A baby, he said. We are going to have a baby. Yes, Fenna said, laughing and crying at the same time. Are you happy? I am more than happy, Yannick said. I am thrilled. I am terrified. I am everything. Fenna kissed him, and they sat like that for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The months passed, and Fenna's belly grew round and full. Yannick was endlessly solicitous, making sure she did not lift anything heavy and preparing her favorite meals, and Fenna teased him for fussing but secretly loved it. They prepared the loft for the baby, building a cradle out of oak and sewing blankets from soft wool, and they talked about names late into the night. If it is a boy, what about Gareth? Yannick suggested one evening. Fenna considered. Gareth Warfield, I like it. It sounds strong. And if it is a girl? Yannick asked. Fenna smiled. I was thinking Alara. It means light. Alara Warfield, Yannick said, trying it out. I love it. The baby came on a warm spring morning just as the sun was rising. Fenna labored through the night, and Yannick stayed by her side, holding her hand and whispering encouragement. When the baby finally arrived, a healthy boy with green skin and his mother's amber eyes, Yannick wept with joy. Hello, Gareth, Fenna said, holding the baby close. Welcome to the world. Yannick kissed her forehead and then his son's, and he thought his heart might burst from happiness. Life settled into a new rhythm after that, one defined by sleepless nights and endless wonder. Gareth was a quiet baby, content to watch the world with wide, curious eyes, and Yannick and Fenna took turns caring for him, learning as they went. One afternoon, as Yannick was rocking Gareth to sleep, there was a knock at the door. Fenna answered it, and Yannick heard her gasp. Father, she said. Yannick stood, still holding the baby, and saw Garen Wormwood standing in the doorway. The orc looked older than Yannick remembered, his hair streaked with more gray, but his eyes were kind as he looked at Fenna. I heard you had a child, Garen said. I wanted to see him. If that is all right. Fenna looked at Yannick, and he nodded. She stepped aside, and Garen came in, his gaze immediately going to the baby in Yannick's arms. This is Gareth, Yannick said, holding the baby out a little so Garen could see. Garen's expression softened, and he reached out one massive hand to gently touch the baby's cheek. He looks like his mother, he said quietly. He does, Fenna said, her voice thick. Garen looked at her, and there was a wealth of emotion in his eyes. I am sorry, Fenna, for everything. I should have been a better father to you. I should have protected you instead of treating you like a pawn. Fenna's eyes filled with tears. You are here now. That is what matters, Garen nodded. I would like to be part of his life, if you will let me. Fenna looked at Yannick, and he smiled. He is your grandson, Yannick said to Garen. Of course you can be part of his life. Garen's shoulders sagged with relief, and he smiled, a real, genuine smile that transformed his face. Thank you. They sat together, the three of them and the baby, and they talked about the future, about building bridges and healing old wounds. It was not perfect, and there were still awkward moments and things left unsaid, but it was a beginning, and that was enough. As the sun set and Garen prepared to leave, he paused at the door and looked back at Fenna. Your mother would be proud of you, he said. I am proud of you. Fenna hugged him, something she had not done in years, and Garen held her tight. When he was gone, Fenna turned to Yannick, her eyes shining. I never thought I would have my father back. Life is full of surprises, Yannick said, pulling her close. They stood together in the doorway, watching the stars come out, and Yannick thought about how far they had come. From a desperate proposal in a holding post cell to a family, a home, and a love that had grown deeper than he ever imagined possible. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had walked past my cell that day? Fenna asked. Yannick shook his head. No, because I did not walk past. I stopped and I said yes, and it was the best decision I ever made. Fenna smiled and kissed him, and inside the house, Gareth began to cry, a healthy, demanding sound that made them both laugh. "Duty calls," Fenna said. "It does," Yannick agreed. They went inside together, ready to face whatever came next, knowing that as long as they had each other, they could handle anything. The years rolled on, and the farm thrived. Gareth grew into a bright, curious boy who loved helping his father in the fields and listening to his mother's stories. 2 years after Gareth's birth, Fenna gave birth to a daughter, Ilara, who had her father's brown hair and her mother's fierce spirit. The children filled the house with laughter and chaos, and Yannick and Fenna loved every minute of it. Garin became a regular visitor, bringing gifts for the children and stories of the clan's history. He and Yannick developed a cautious friendship, built on mutual respect and their shared love for Fenna and the children. It was not always easy, but it was real, and that was what mattered. The neighbors, who had been skeptical at first, came to accept Fenna as one of their own. She helped deliver babies, tended the sick, and worked alongside the other farmers during harvest, and they learned that she was not so different from them after all. Prejudices died hard, but they could be overcome, one small act of kindness at a time. One spring evening when Gareth was 5 and Ilara was 3, Yannick and Fenna sat on the porch, watching the children play in the yard. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and red, and the air was warm and sweet with the scent of blooming flowers. "I have been thinking," Fenna said, leaning against Yannick. "About what?" Yannick asked, his arm around her shoulders. "About how different my life could have been," Fenna said. "If you had not said yes that day, if I had been sent back to Vrager, I would not be here. I would not have you or Gareth or Ilara. I would not have this beautiful, messy, wonderful life." Yannick kissed the top of her head. "But you are here, and so am I, and we have all of this because we chose each other." Fenna looked up at him, her amber eyes soft. "I would choose you again, every time." "I would choose you too," Yannick said. "Every single time." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their children play, and Yannick thought about the future. There would be challenges, he knew. There always were. But as long as he had Fenna by his side, he could face them. Gareth ran up to the porch, his face flushed and happy. "Papa, Mama, look what I found." He held out a perfect, smooth river stone, and Fenna took it, admiring it with exaggerated seriousness. "That is a very fine stone," she said. "We should keep it." "I will put it with the others," Gareth said, and he ran off to add it to the collection he kept in a wooden box in the house. Ilara toddled over next, demanding to be picked up, and Yannick scooped her into his lap. She snuggled against him, her eyes drooping with sleepiness, and Yannick felt a wave of contentment wash over him. This was his life now. A wife he loved, children who filled his days with joy, and a home that was built on love and trust and the courage to say yes when it mattered most. "Thank you," Fenna said quietly. "For what?" Yannick asked. "For taking my hand," Fenna said. "For facing my enemies, for loving me." Yannick smiled. "Thank you for asking, for trusting me, for building this life with me." Fenna kissed him, and Ilara made a face, pushing them apart with her tiny hands. "No kissing," she declared, and Yannick and Fenna laughed. "All right, no kissing," Yannick said, tickling Ilara until she squealed with laughter. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the stars began to come out, bright and clear in the darkening sky. Yannick carried Ilara inside, Fenna following with Gareth, and they put the children to bed, singing them the lullabies that Fenna's mother had once sung to her. When the children were asleep, Yannick and Fenna returned to the porch, and they sat together under the stars, holding hands and talking about everything and nothing. The world was quiet around them, peaceful and full of promise, And Yannick thought that this, right here, was everything he had ever wanted. A life built on love. A family forged from courage and choice. A future that stretched out before them, bright and full of hope. And it had all started with a simple question in a holding post cell, and a farmer who had said yes. Fenna rested her head on Yannick's shoulder, and he wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. They sat like that for a long time, watching the stars wheel overhead, two souls who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful together. "I love you," Fenna whispered. "I love you too," Yannick said. And under the vast, starry sky, with their children sleeping safe inside and the farm stretching out around them, Yannick Warfield and Fenna Warfield held each other close and knew, without a doubt, that they were exactly where they were meant to be together. Always.